Hey everybody, welcome back to Go Read Some Comics with me, Professor Jenna. It's here. The Superman trailer is finally here. First off, I just need to say how much I loved the rollout of this week, from the poster on Monday, to the set visit quotes on Tuesday, to the teaser on Wednesday, and now to the trailer. It truly made this feel like an event. Like there was something different in the air waking up on Thursday morning. Before I break down the specifics, I'll just share my initial reaction. The first viewing was pure shock and a lot of screaming. The second viewing, and every viewing since then, has made me sob. I've sobbed over the beauty of the movie itself, the beauty of the fact that all of these characters I love are in it together, the beauty of the fact that we have a new DCU that is being constructed with so much hope and love and care towards the source material, and over the bizarre string of circumstances that have brought me here yapping about it to you all. I'm overwhelmed, I'm already crying even as I'm saying this, and I have so many thoughts, so I'm just gonna dive in. I love how profound this first scene is. He is literally crashing into our lives and into our reality. He's also a little bruised and battered, which I feel like both represents the cultural perception of Superman over the past decade and also what he represents for America. James basically said as much at the trailer event, saying, quote, "We do have a battered Superman in the beginning. That is our country. I believe in the goodness of human beings, and I believe that most people in this country, despite their ideological beliefs, their politics, are doing their best to get by and be good people, despite what it may seem to the other side, no matter what that other side may be. This movie is about that. It's about basic kindness of human beings, and that it can be seen as uncool and under siege by some of the darker voices." Also, I'm not going to speculate about what injured him in this scene. It could be Lex, it could be the giant kaiju, it could be a number of things, but it is such an evocative image to really get us started. I can yap at length about the aesthetic choices that are made in this movie. The wardrobe being slightly anachronistic and timeless and having this very warm color palette, Metropolis being this blend of multiple different skylines and pieces of architecture, including its own take on the Space Needle, being blended with Cleveland. As someone who just went to the Space Needle a few weeks ago and who visited Cleveland last fall and spent a good chunk of my time just walking around the downtown area, I love that. Never would have guessed that I was unintentionally walking by the Daily Planet. Cleveland also pays tribute to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's origins in Ohio, which is just beautiful. I have loved that detail ever since production commenced on this movie. Jumping ahead a bit, I also love how unique the Luthor Corp building looks and how much it probably annoys some people in Metropolis that the logo is a massive part of the skyline. As someone who lives in Chicago, I know that feeling all too well. It's also interesting that the only shot we get of the engineer is seemingly on the top of that building. Back to the snow. The fact that as Clark is gasping and recovering, he looks directly at us. I can't even talk about it without crying. It just says so much about Superman and what he reflects out to us and what we reflect back to him. When John Murphy was announced as the composer for this, I held on to a small morsel of hope that we would get an electric guitar somewhere in the score. I was not prepared for it to be a take on the Williams theme, but it just feels so triumphant and modern and just the perfect way to set the tone for this movie. I also do not want to hear anyone complaining about that theme being homaged. If we can remix and reinterpret the Spider-Man theme and the X-Men chords, we can do this. I love the look of the Daily Planet. I'm going to be very curious to see if this newsroom is the literal basement and what exactly the vibe and the prestige of the paper is overall. I love that Kat Grant is kind of just minding her business and Steve Lombard is being extremely on brand. Also, what we can see of the news chyrons mentioning wildfires and floods perfectly set up the stakes for Superman saving people from things that aren't just a physical person. Rachel's Lois looks perfect. Every Lois essentially has their own version of the vest outfit, but I love how modern and effortless hers feels. Also, I need that Daily Planet coffee mug to be available to purchase as soon as humanly possible. I cannot wait to see the interplay between these three, especially Clark and Jimmy. In the footage from the teaser on Wednesday, Jimmy is wearing a watch that looks suspiciously like the signal watch that he uses to call Superman. I'll talk later about the Clark-Lois-Superman love triangle, but I'm almost equally as excited to see Jimmy's relationship to both Clark and Superman. I do wish we could have seen Perry White somewhere in this trailer, but at least Wendell Pierce shared a delightful behind-the-scenes selfie a little bit before the trailer dropped. I will admit, I have such an attachment to the Smallville Kent farm, which then became the Arrowverse Kent farm, but I do adore how quaint and authentic the one in this movie feels. A part of me hopes that this scene with him and Jonathan is just a heart-to-heart, maybe James's take on this image, but a part of me is also slightly worried for Martha. Neva Howell has been cast as Martha, so we know we'll see her in the movie in some capacity, but there is some precedent for her dying in the source material. Clark's very first origin issue, 1948 Superman 53, essentially used the death of both of the Kents to kind of kickstart Clark's journey into being Superman. Either way, I just know this family dynamic is gonna wreck me. After the Look Up tagline on Monday's poster, I have a whole separate video yapping about that, by the way. I had a feeling I would love whatever tagline or text this trailer had, but I was not prepared for the sheer confidence and brilliance of "This summer it begins." The new DCU, the new era of hope. That, coupled with the fact that the iconography of Superman really speaks for itself to the point of not having a title card and barely having any dialogue, just blows me away. I refuse to hear any further negativity about Krypto. When the first photo of him came out, too many people complained that he should be short-haired and bigger. I think because they absorbed images like this, I wholeheartedly disagreed with those complaints, and I think the use of Krypto in this trailer is just perfect. His design is adorable. I do wish we could have had merch for him by Christmas, but I look forward to the plush, the Build-A-Bear, the Funko Pop. This really feels like the Silver Age incarnation of Krypto, just being scampy and ridiculous while mixed with the adorable annoyance of being a modern dog owner. James has experience with characters who are equally adorable and aggravating, so I just know this is going to be fun. The little bits we see of Nicholas Holt's Lex look great. I cannot wait to dive into the mad scientist aspect. It's something that really dominated the Silver and Bronze Ages of Lex's story before falling to the wayside in favor of the businessman side. Unfortunately, he's probably not going to steal 40 cakes, but I have a feeling that his beef with Superman and his approach to his cause are going to be really compelling. In my mind, the best interpretations of Lex are the ones that lean into the tragedy of his story and the notion that he sees himself as humanity's savior. And I have a feeling we're going to get that in spades here, combined with good old-fashioned hating. We very briefly see the country of Baravia, which is a callback all the way back to 1939's Superman #2. Feels like the country's role in the movie is going to be pretty similar to the source material, where Clark is helping save the citizens from a civil war. The fact that most of the dialogue in the trailer is the child whispering the word Superman, and that Superman's emblem is already so known around the world that he can make a makeshift flag of it, legitimately gives me goosebumps. I've said it once on this channel, and I will say it a million times. The current generation of kids deserve to have superheroes of their own, and it feels like this movie acknowledges that wholeheartedly. Between Krypto and all of the scenes of him saving kids and just the overall wackiness of this movie, I feel like it's really speaking to the younger generation in a way that is going to be so beautiful come July. Now let's get to the other superheroes. I have seen too many people worry that this cast is going to get bloated, which is wild to me given how well Guardians and the Suicide Squad handled their big ensembles, but I have faith that these characters are going to be utilized in a really unique and fun way. What I think people are missing is that this is just how comics function. Characters can show up in other characters' books and just really be there to help the story. They don't necessarily have to go through some massive arc of their own or take away real estate from the main character. They can just be there as supporting characters. In terms of live-action Superman, we've almost always seen him kind of shoved into his own corner, barely getting to revel in the fact that he's in this larger universe that's filled with colorful characters. Again, I know I always mention Smallville, but it really was the blueprint for how to tell a story about Clark and about the DC universe as a whole. Getting that on screen right from the jump and not necessarily having to earn his relationship with the larger superheroing world is just great to me. It's also great because I have a feeling that Superman's impact on the superhero community is going to be accurate to how it is in the comics and in comics history. He wasn't the first superhero, but his methods and his symbolism helped change the way that other superheroes operate. James was quoted as saying, quote, "He has friends who are other superheroes. He has people he doesn't get along as well with who are other superheroes. He has a lot of things that we love about the Superman comics that we haven't been able to see as much of in filmed media, and definitely haven't been able to see in a grounded way, which is what I hope we've created." I get how that can seem overwhelming on an outside perspective, but I have faith, especially considering the crop of characters that we have here. We have Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, created by John Broome and Gil Kane in 1968's Green Lantern #59. Guy is introduced as a backup Green Lantern whose tenure runs parallel to Hal Jordan's. He becomes a bit of a plot punching bag, getting hit by a bus, stuck in the Phantom Zone, and trapped in a coma. After the coma, his personality changes to being a bit more abrasive and chauvinistic, leading to the most iconic version of him from Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire's Justice League International run. Despite being a nuisance to the point of infamously getting punched in the face by Batman, this run starts to illuminate some of the insecurities and the personal drama of Guy's life and helped turn him into a bona fide fan favorite. He's alternated back and forth between being a Green Lantern again, a member of other Lantern Corps, or adopting the cosmic mantle of warrior, and even owning a bar that other superheroes go to. I don't know how much of that we'll necessarily get in the DCU, although I would really love to see Warrior's bar, but I love how the bowl cut looks in motion, and I love how Nathan, even just walking into a room, already encapsulates so much of Guy's machismo. Outside of the JLA TV movie from the 1990s, which I will always have a weird soft spot for, we haven't really gotten a proper live-action incarnation of Guy, so I'm excited for that to change. We have Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, more specifically Kendra Saunders, who was created by James Robinson, David Goyer, and Scott Benefell in 1999's JSA Secret Files #1. The Hawk family lore is so convoluted that it could honestly fill its own 30-minute video, but the short of it is that Kendra is the granddaughter of the Golden Age adventurer Speed Saunders. Depending on which canon you believe, she either becomes possessed with the spirit of Golden Age Hawkwoman after dying, or she simply is the newest reincarnation of the ancient Shiera entity. She's become a recurring staple of the Birds of Prey and the Justice League, and I've loved seeing her being embraced as a more notable character in recent years, so I'm excited to see how this movie takes that even further. We have Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho. I initially didn't think this was him on my first watch because he's definitely more textured than he traditionally looks in the comics, but that purple arm is so obvious. Created by Bob Haney, Ramona Fradon, and George Cashton in 1965's Brave and the Bold 57, Metamorpho is also known as Rex Mason, an adventurer who is employed by Stag Industries, the R&D company that we also see in this teaser. After nearly dying next to an Egyptian meteorite known as the Orb of Ra, Rex is reborn with the ability to transform his body into any elemental compound. While he was initially just supposed to be a parody of the 60s weirdo characters like the Doom Patrol and the Metal Men, he became a runaway hit on his own, getting an ongoing series and an invite to join the Justice League, which he did turn down the first time. He's eventually joined the League, as well as the Outsiders and the Terrifics, a group that I will talk more about in a second. He actually has a new ongoing comic coming out very soon from Al Ewing and Steve Lieber. If you want to learn more about that, be sure to stay subscribed to this channel. I had a feeling ever since Anthony Carrigan was cast that he was really going to lean into both the fun and the sadness of Rex as a character, and this one shot certainly delivers that. And finally, we have Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. Created by John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake in 1992's The Spectre 54, Michael Holt is actually the second person to hold the mantle of Mr. Terrific following Golden Age Renaissance man Terry Sloan. Michael is a prolific genius and gold medal Olympian who is inspired to turn his life around and carry on in Terry's honor after his wife and unborn child die in an accident. He's joined and often run the JSA, Checkmate, and most recently the Terrifics, alongside Metamorpho, Phantom Girl, and Plastic Man. While that group initially started out as a Fantastic Four parody, it has become its own under-the-radar staple of science and adventuring in the DCU, and it is genuinely one of my favorite books that DC has put out in the past decade. The fact that we already have half of the team members on screen in the DCU feels like a fever dream, even if we don't see them form that group right away. I'm not going to speculate too much about the kaiju, but the fact that I can even say the words "there's a kaiju in a Superman movie trailer" feels unbelievable. I could easily see it being one of Lex's science machinations, or kaiju just being a recurring thing in this universe. Either way, after how brilliantly Starro was done in the Suicide Squad, and given my personal love for Godzilla, I am elated. Also, I think that's Kelex in the Fortress of Solitude. He was introduced by John Byrne in 1986's The Man of Steel #1 as a sort of robot butler to the L family. He largely functions as an exposition machine or someone to bounce off of when having conversations in the fortress. I love that we're getting him as a full-fledged Tomorrowland-looking robot, especially after how he was represented in previous live-action stories. The summer of 2025 is going to be great for weird little robots. And finally, Clois. I love that we get to see all of the sides of their dynamic without even getting any dialogue. Maybe it won't be the full-fledged love triangle that Clark, Lois, and Superman had in the Silver Age, but it's still something that feels emotional and different. James was quoted as saying that, quote, "The relationship between David and Rachel's characters on screen is something that I don't think we've seen in," I hate to say stuff like this, but I don't think it's something we've ever seen in any superhero movie ever. It's a complicated relationship, and we really get into it, and there's long scenes that are about their relationship and the way they relate. As someone who has been disappointed by the lack of romance in superhero media, go watch my Wicked video if you want to hear me yap about that more. I have a feeling this is going to change lives. And y'all, please stop complaining about him talking to Lois or putting on his boots while the giant orb, probably Solaris, created by Grant Morrison for DC 1 Million and All-Star Superman, is attacking outside. We don't have the full context, and I have a feeling those moments are going to be super poignant when they're actually strung together. What did you think of the Superman trailer? How hyped are you for the movie? Are there any parts that you particularly loved? Is there anything that made you cry? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your reactions. The response to the poster and theme video that I put out earlier this week was already overwhelming, so I'm hoping that this one also carries that torch. I just can't believe we're here, and I can't believe I get to talk about this, and I cannot wait for next July. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I will be posting a Creature Commandos episode 4 breakdown as quickly as I can possibly film it and edit it together. What a great day to be a DC fan. As always, you can find me on social media at Hey It's Jenna Lynn, and as always, go read some comics.